sharp crack echoed through the silent night, a sound like thunder in the stillness. The air, thick with tension, carried the scent of damp earth and smoke from dying campfires. In the dark, a figure moved through the shadowy trees, heart pounding like a drum. This was it. He was close. The wagon train had long passed, and along with it the people who had become his family, even if just for a moment. But he wasn't done yet, not with the fading cries of a woman. The wind whipped around him, carrying her desperation, urging him forward deeper into the thicket. Her name was Mary, a stranger left behind, abandoned and alone. As the moonlight cut through the trees, illuminating the underbrush, he could see the remnants of the wagon train's wheels in the mud, evidence of the carelessness of those who claimed to be heading west for a better life. Mary's cries were sharp and pained, a sound that clawed at the very core of his being. It echoed in his mind like a battle cry, and he thrust forward, propelled by both urgency and courage. Flashes of fear coursed through him. What if he didn't reach her in time? What if she was already lost? Each step felt heavy, as if the earth itself were trying to pull him back, insisting that he stay in safety. But the thought of leaving her behind became unbearable. He brushed aside branches, breath shallow, mind racing. Then he saw her. Dimly illuminated by the ghostly moon, Mary lay crumpled at the base of a tree, teetering on the edge of consciousness. Sweat glistened on her brow and her breaths were labored, a series of gasps that resonated with pain. The shadows danced, every flicker intensifying the gravity of the scene. She looked so fragile, like a bird with a broken wing. He shouted, dashing to her side, but there was no response, just the faint shaking of her body. In that moment, he grasped her hand, feeling the warmth seeping away. Instinct took over. "Stay with me," he urged, locking eyes with her. He could see the flicker of awareness, a glimmer of will behind those tired eyes. "You're gonna be all right." She wasn't alone anymore. Something fierce stirred within him, a relentless force that pushed out doubt and fear. As he cradled her hand, he marveled at how different she felt from the others who had turned away. He remembered that earlier that day, when it seemed easier to abandon the obstinate expectations of the world, the way the wagon train rolled on, indifferent to human need. But not him. He wouldn't be just another face who disappeared into history. He was a part of this story now, and her story demanded fight. "Help!" Mary gasped, eyes wide with terror. Panic flooded his veins, but he steadied his breath. The situation was dire, but there was no place for fear now. He had to focus. He murmured, his voice firm but gentle, "Can you tell me what you need?" The world narrowed down to just the two of them. Mary's cheeks flushed, and he noticed the dirt streaked across her face, the weariness written into every line of her features. The weight of expectation pressed down on his shoulders. This was no simple task. In the wilderness, he had learned to survive, but this was the essence of life and death. "Here," she pointed weakly to her belly, tears glistening in her eyes. I can't." It was a nightmare unrolling, a moment too raw for the light of day. "Breathe, Mary," he instructed, trying to summon a calmness that rested just outside his reach. He rubbed her hand, feeling its warmth seep through their skin. "Just breathe with me, in and out." He thought of stories he had heard from travelers, a distant village where helpers gathered, skilled hands trained in healing, where compassion thrived. But here in this darkness, all he had was himself and the flickering reminder of hope. Her voice barely emerged full, a whisper filled with betrayal. Those words cut deep, sharp as a blade. Because life often felt like a cruel game of chance, where fate dealt hands of despair without a second thought. "They didn't see you," he said, battling the emotion surging up inside him. He grasped her hand tighter. "You're not alone anymore." Time twisted and stretched, minutes feeling like hours, waiting in the infinite darkness where hope shimmered and faltered. Mary's breaths became ragged, quickening as if she were fighting her own battle against some invisible foe. Panic swept over him anew. "Just a little longer, Mary," he encouraged, racking his brain for anything that would help her push through this moment. A silence stretched between them, and for a fleeting moment he grasped her stubborn determination echoing in his heart. The baby tiny fingers yet to curl around a world ready to embrace it, filled with possibility. He asked, his voice soft but steady, "Keep your focus here." Just as those words left his lips, a sharp gasp emerged from Mary. A surge trembled through her, a force as ancient and fierce as the wild itself. He witnessed the embodiment of life fighting to enter this realm, and something miraculous flickered in the air. He shouted, torn between awe and urgency, "Push, Mary!" Her energy surged, eyes closing tight as she cried out in fury and pain. He shifted behind her, positioning himself as support, a steady force in the storm of what she faced. "Keep breathing, keep going," he chanted, feeling every moment tinged with the music of life. With each struggle, he felt her determination weave into the air, creating something profound, something their souls shared. The sound of cracking branches reminded him of fragile dreams attempting to reach for the light. And in the darkness of that moment, he became her ally, sparking a fierce connection that transcended desperation. Then a wail erupted, a cry that echoed through the night like a beacon. It shattered the heaviness in the air, signaling that life had emerged. He exhaled, tears mingling with the dirt on his cheeks, wonder coiling into his gut as he pulled the tiny, glistening form from the shadows. "It's a girl," he whispered, overcome with a surge of joy and relief so intense it surged through his veins. Mary fell back, gasping for breath, the fight leaving her body as triumph filled the space where despair had lingered. As he cradled the newborn, something shifted. It wasn't just a moment of survival, it was a moment of transformation. Mary opened her eyes, still hazy but brimming with gratitude. She murmured, voice cracking. He laid her daughter gently on her chest, and Mary's fingers brushed against the soft crown of her child's head. It was sacred, a connection forged in the most unexpected of places. "Thank you," she breathed, her tears blending into the earth, touched with the remnants of their journey. He nodded, a smile breaking across his face as he witnessed the bond growing stronger in the moonlight. But the task was not over. Night cloaked the world and time was slipping, the shadows encroaching with urgency. He couldn't stay in this bubble forever, though he wanted to. The faint sounds of the night flitted around them, noises of danger lingering in the distance, the ominous reminders of the wild. "We'll need to find shelter," he said, standing up with renewed resolve. Mary asked, her voice trembling with uncertainty. "They won't come back," he assured her, setting the seriousness of the situation in his eyes. "But we'll be fine. You have a baby now. You're a mother." As they carefully packed what few supplies they had, gathering strength in a wild, sacred night, he knew they had crossed a threshold that could never be uncrossed. There was a glimmer of hope reflected in Mary's eyes, and together they stepped away from that moment marked by grief and chaos. The fragile mother and newborn forged ahead into the unknown, wrapped in the warm embrace of the night. With each step, silence transformed into potential and darkness turned into possibility. Even in the shadows of the wilderness, they found a way forward together. He had saved the pregnant stranger left behind, but in that moment he realized they had saved each other. Together, they lit the path ahead. In the cool of a dawn shrouded in mist, the air was thick with tension. The wagon train rolled forward, a lumbering mass of people and hopes bound for a promised land. Yet at the edge of that blossoming dream, a scream shattered the morning stillness. "Help!" The cry echoed through the valley, a desperate plea calling out to a world still cloaked in slumber. Jack Thompson, a seasoned scout traveling with the train, felt a jolt of urgency shoot through him. He had been part of the wagon train for weeks, earning a modest living guiding these hopeful settlers toward the west. But in this moment, all thoughts of gold and new beginnings vanished. Another scream pierced the air, dragging him into the throes of an unexpected reality. There, at the rear of the wagons, he saw her, a woman, pale and trembling, crouched behind a thicket of barren trees. Her clothes were torn and a sheen of sweat glistened on her forehead. She cried again, her voice frantic and filled with raw fear. It struck something deep within him, a flame igniting that he could not extinguish. Without a second thought, he sprinted toward her, his boots crunching on the gravelly earth. As he neared, he caught sight of her swollen belly and realized she was pregnant, heavy with the burden of life and dread. Jack asked, kneeling beside her. He glanced back at the train, which continued to roll away, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding behind them. "They left me," she gasped, her eyes wide with desperation. A wave of rage washed over him at the thought of the others leaving her behind, just as they would a heavy load or a broken wheel. He shook his head, looking closely at her now, taking in the pallor that marked her cheeks. "I need to get to a safe place," she whispered, and in that moment she looked even more fragile than before, like a delicate leaf caught in the wind. He looked back toward the wagon train as it rolled further into the distance. His heart raced. If he could even catch them at this point, what good would it do? They wouldn't care, no one cared, but he did care. "All right," he said firmly. "You're not alone." Without hesitation, he helped her up, feeling her weight lean against him as they began to stumble away from the noise of the wagon train. Each step became a battle against exhaustion, but Jack pushed onward. With every breath she took, he felt her heart beating against his side, and he realized how their fates had intertwined at this very moment. He felt an electric connection, a vulnerability and strength that swirled through the air, binding them together. "Thank you," she breathed as they moved through the underbrush, far from the path of the train. "Stay close to me," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "We'll find cover and then we can." Her name was Clara, and as they stumbled deeper into the wooded thicket, she shared fragments of her story, of how she had journeyed from Missouri, leaving behind a life that no longer felt like home. She spoke of dreams, of children that would come to inherit a world filled with opportunity and the simple courage to chase after it. But it was all slipping away now, swallowed by the indifference of fate and circumstance. The forest thickened around them, shadows dancing like lost spirits. As they navigated the tangled roots and branches, Jack stole glances at Clara, noticing how her breath quickened, how her face twisted with pain. I think the baby is coming," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. A pit formed in his stomach. He glanced around, scouting the area for somewhere safe. "There has to be a place we can stop somewhere." She shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "I can't." The gravity of the situation slammed into him. He quickly scanned their surroundings, desperation clawing at his insides like a caged beast. Nothing felt like the right answer, yet time was against them. Okay," he said, swallowing hard. He laid her gently against a broad tree trunk, leaning forward to create a wall of protection around her. Clara's face contorted in anguish, and he wished to wipe the fear from her eyes. Instead, all he could do was offer her a reassuring nod. "Just breathe," he said softly. "Focus on my voice. You're strong, Clara." With the leaves rustling around them, he watched her struggle, feeling helpless yet determined. The world felt ablaze in chaos while she drifted closer to the edge of survival. Just moments ago, she had been part of the dream. Now it was an endless cycle of hope and despair, caught in the balance between life and death. Clara's breath caught in her throat. "It hurts." "I know," he murmured, his heart aching as he reached for her hand. "It's going to be okay. Just think of your baby. You're bringing life into the world, Clara." As they lingered in the shadows, he finally allowed himself a moment to consider what was happening. He was a guide, a traveler through the roughest patches of life, yet here he stood, utterly unprepared for this moment. But every instinct in him screamed that he had to stand firm. Clara's face twisted in pain again, her breaths quickening. "Jack." He could feel the tension in the air thickening, worry etched lines deep into his forehead. He took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage. "Clara, I want you to listen to me. I'm going to help you, but I need you to believe you can do this." She nodded slightly, the fear still dancing in her eyes. He gently shifted her slight frame, reorienting her against the tree. But he knew it wasn't just Clara fighting, it was life itself, tearing through the darkness. Another wave of cries echoed from her throat, raw and unyielding. He placed his free hand on her shoulder. "Just breathe through it like we practiced," he encouraged. The groans of the forest were suddenly drowned out by her cries, penetrating through the very fabric of the air. Jack could feel the gravity of the moment tightening. It was as if the world had simply stopped, swirling in a cyclone of existence and dreams, purpose, and chaos. Then, in a moment as unexpected as it was painful, Clara's body heaved with the force of something primal. She gasped, her grip tightening around his hand, nails digging into his palm. "Just hold on," he said, his voice thick with urgency. "You're almost there." Time slipped away as Clara brought the fight of life forth. He caught glimpses of the strength buried deep within her, a warrior summoned by desperation and heavy with purpose. Her consummate grit was a beacon guiding them both through the storm. Then a piercing cry erupted, and the tension shattered like glass bursting forth with fury. He cried out, filled with awe and wonder. The rush of emotion swept through him, a mix of joy and relief that ignited the air around them. Clara slumped back, breathless, shock and disbelief weaving through her eyes as she took in her child. Clara asked, voice trembling. Jack reached for the small bundle, wrapping her gently in the fabric they had carried. He held the tiny girl protectively, feeling the weight of new life against him. "She's perfect," he assured, drawing closer to the bewildered mother. Tears streamed down Clara's cheeks as she gazed at her daughter, and for a moment the world fell away. It was just them, a fragile little family blooming against all odds in the heart of darkness. But the urgency was far from over. They were still alone, hidden away in the thicket, with the specter of danger lurking just at the edges of their sanctuary. "Clara," Jack said, breaking the atmosphere of reverie with a firm determination. "We need to hide." She managed, trembling slightly. The wagon train. With her newborn cradled gently against her chest, Clara nodded, her resolve awakening anew. They stumbled through the woods together, the chill of night pressing against their skin as they searched for a place that could give them at least a moment of respite, a sanctuary from the world that so easily cast them aside. After what felt like an eternity, they stumbled upon a thicket, a natural barricade of brush and trees that would keep them hidden. "Here," Jack urged, guiding Clara into the shelter of the trees. They settled beneath the overhanging branches, the shield of foliage wrapping around them like a protective cocoon. Clara held her daughter close, and Jack took a moment to breathe deeply as he surveyed their surroundings. The quiet enveloped them, and in those moments he felt a profound connection, a bond unlike any he had ever experienced. Clara was still nervous, her breath shaky, but amid the fear lingered a softness that hinted at resilience. "Thank you, Jack," she whispered, her voice thick with gratitude. "I don't know what." "Don't mention it," he replied, a smile creeping across his face. As they caught their breath in the safety of their thicket, a spark ignited in the depths of their hearts. The trail ahead remained uncertain, filled with shadows and unfamiliar roads, but in this small pocket of existence, they held on to hope. As long as they had each other, everything was possible. The wagon train may have left Clara behind, but Jack stood unwavering. Together, they ventured into the unknown, carrying the weight of their newfound family and promises that stretched far beyond the horizon. There in the heart of the wilderness, they sparked a flame of resilience, a testament to the intertwined destinies of two souls who refused to let go, each leading the other to a brighter dawn. Out in the wild expanse of the American West, where the vast skies stretched endlessly and the land held secrets buried in dirt and dust, a wagon train rolled forward under the blistering sun. The creak of wooden wheels mingled with the low murmur of voices, blending into the soundscape of hope and dreams bound for new beginnings. But amidst the laughter and chatter, a sudden commotion erupted. "Stop!" A voice called out, raw and filled with panic. Everyone turned, startled. In their haste, amidst the relentless pace of the wagon train, they had left someone behind. Panic filled the air as people exchanged confused glances. Then they spotted her, a woman stumbling through the tall grass, her face flushed and her hand resting protectively on her swollen belly. A man yelled from the lead wagon. It was her husband, Thomas, his voice strained with desperation and disbelief. He had been wrapped up in the excitement of the journey, but now horror painted his face. In that moment, everything changed. The train continued to inch forward, oblivious to the heartache brewing just a few steps away. No one knew what to do. Should they turn back, keep going? A collective indecision filled the group like a thick fog. Leela's eyes darted between her husband and the train retreating into the distance. That's when Jack Hunter, a scout who had joined the wagon train weeks earlier, sprang into action. He could see the panic in Leela's eyes, the fear mounting as the dust cloud from the departing wagon swallowed her hope. Without a second thought, he dashed forward, cutting through the tall grass as he reached for her. He shouted, urgency lining his voice. He could sense the weight of the situation pressing down on them. Leela sagged against him, her breath quickening. I can't, she murmured, tears pooling in her eyes. You're not alone, Jack assured her, adrenaline coursing through his veins. We're going to get you safe. With every step away from the confusion of the wagon train, Jack felt a fierce determination surging within him. He had always prided himself on being a man of action, but this was different. This was about a life he hadn't even met yet, a child on the brink of existence caught in a storm of uncertainty. Leela cried, but Jack shook his head, keeping her close. "He'll be back. He just doesn't know where we are yet," he responded, steering her further away from the sound of retreating hooves and creaking wheels. In the distance, Leela spotted her husband frantically waving for help, but Jack focused on the present. They had to find shelter. He asked, steadying her as they stumbled between pockets of tall grass and clumps of wildflowers. I'm trying," she panted, face damp with sweat. The strain of the journey weighed heavily on her, making every step a monumental effort. As they went deeper into the brush, the urgency of their situation bore down on them. Jack felt the tension in the air, the subtle shift that came with impending danger. Nature felt alive, as if aware of the crisis unfurling amidst its roots and branches. "Hang in there, Leela," he breathed, squeezing her hand. "We'll find somewhere safe." The ominous sky swirled with clouds as if echoing Leela's turmoil. Thunder rumbled in the distance, a reminder that time was not on their side. All around them, the wind whipped through the trees, a symphony of nature underscoring the fragility of human existence. Suddenly, without warning, Leela gasped and stopped short, her entire body tensing. Jack turned to her, eyes widening with alarm. I think it's happening," she choked out, panic climbing in her throat. They were in the middle of nowhere, far from doctors or any kind of help. The shadows of reality deepened around them, and Jack's heart pounded as he realized the gravity of the moment. "Let's find a place to rest, somewhere we can get off the ground," he said, looking around frantically. There, just ahead, he spotted a large oak tree, its branches sprawling like welcoming arms. He urged, guiding her toward the tree where the ground was soft, padded with fallen leaves. He eased her down gently, propping her against the sturdy trunk, and for a brief moment time stood still. Silence enveloped them, disturbed only by Leela's labored breathing. Jack crouched beside her, trying to mask his own fear with a confident exterior. "Leela, listen to me," he said, locking eyes with her. "You're going to be okay. Focus on my voice." She nodded weakly, her grip tightening on his hand. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but there was also a flicker of determination burning in her gaze. Life had a way of igniting the most unexpected fire within us when faced with despair. Suddenly, another wave of pain crashed over her, causing her to double over, gasping for air. Jack could feel his heart racing. "You're strong, Leela." He could sense time slipping away, the storm brewing both outside and within her. "You can do this. Think of your baby. You are bringing life into the world." With each surge of pain, he watched her fight against it, her resilience manifesting with every grunt and gasp. It was a powerful sight, a woman braving the chaos of life itself. The wind howled around them, dark clouds looming overhead, mirroring the storm inside the fragile woman tucked against the gnarled trunk of the tree. In that moment, Jack didn't just witness her struggle, he felt it in his bones. The weight of this moment pressed down on him with a clarity he had never experienced before. He was witnessing the essence of humanity. Minutes stretched into hours, the intensity of the forest growing thicker with each passing moment, a tangible entity watching their struggle unfold. Jack's determination shifted into a primal urge to protect his heart and soul entwined in this battle for life. He shouted, desperation flooding his tone as he leveraged every ounce of encouragement he could muster. "You can do it." With each chant, with every desperate plea, he felt the connection deepening, the raw power of life bringing them together in the depths of uncertainty. At last, one final scream erupted from Leela's lips, sharp and fierce, and suddenly he saw it, the moment of truth. The flimsy barrier between life and death shattered in a heartbeat, revealing the brilliance of existence itself. Jack cried out, exhilaration washing over him as he held the tiny, squirming bundle in his hands, swathed in a blanket woven from the remnants of their desperation and hope. Leela collapsed back against the tree, tears streaming down her face as a wave of relief swept through her, a mixture of joy, pain, and an overwhelming love. Leela asked, her voice barely above a whisper, weighted with exhaustion. "Perfect," Jack said, feeling the warmth of the newborn radiate against his chest. He gently laid the baby in Leela's waiting arms, cradling her fragile body with the utmost care. They both stared in awe at the miracle between them, an innocent embodiment of everything they had fought for. In that small pocket of existence, a profound connection flowed between Jack and Leela, an unshakable bond born from a harrowing experience that could have unraveled them, but instead drew them closer together. But their journey was still not over. The storm loomed ominously overhead, dark clouds swirling with menace, promising rain and chaos. "Leela, we need to get somewhere back to the wagon train or at least a shelter," Jack urged, his heart pounding against his ribcage. She nodded weakly, holding the child tightly as they both wrestled with the reality that lay ahead. Together, they braced themselves against the swirling winds, moving slowly yet determinedly, guided by a shared resilience. With each step, they felt a burgeoning strength. With Leela holding their newborn daughter, Jack felt a weight lifting, a connection, a family forged against the harshness of the world. As they reached a small rise, Jack finally spotted the remnants of the wagon train, now partially encamped under the gathering storm. Sighs of relief began to bubble up within him, lifting the heavy burdens beneath the surface. But as they neared, they saw the absence of compassion in the onlookers who had once been comrades in survival. Whispers arose as the settlers exchanged glances, some not even wanting to meet their eyes. The wagon train had left Leela behind, and now, even after everything, some felt bitter not wanting to be reminded of what had happened. Someone muttered, their voice dripping with incredulity. Jack steadied Leela, feeling the anger rise within him. "They didn't know," he shot back, his voice cutting through the gossip like a knife. Someone else sneered, but Jack wouldn't let them tear Leela down. She had fought for her child. She had defied the odds, and they had all chosen to keep moving forward, oblivious to the weight women like Leela bore. "Stop," he said, his voice steady. He turned back to Leela, offering a fierce smile. "You did it, Leela." Despite the scornful whispers, Jack felt a warmth blossoming between them. Clara smiled back, a deep serenity seeping into her expression, an embodiment of everything they had accomplished together. As the rain began to pour, they found shelter under a nearby wagon. The rain fell hard, washing away the bitterness and fear, cleansing their journey forward. Clinging to one another beneath the drumming of raindrops, they felt the bond grow between them, a testament to survival, resilience, and an unwavering hope that would carry them into the future. In the light of the storm, with the world raging around them, Jack and Leela, together with their newborn, forged ahead. A family united through struggles and triumphs, embracing the unknown together, wrapped in the power of life and love that had endured against all odds. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long, eerie shadows across the dusty terrain of the Oregon Trail. The wagon train crawled forward, a slow-moving snake of canvas and wood, creaking and groaning under the weight of dreams, hopes, and the harsh realities of a long journey. In that moment, the horizon seemed unbearably bright against the desolation of the land, a deceptive promise of what lay ahead. Suddenly, a woman's scream pierced the air, slicing through the chatter like a knife. "Please." The desperation in her voice echoed like a thunderclap, demanding attention. At the back of the train, Jack Thompson, a rugged scout with sun-kissed skin and an unyielding spirit, turned sharply. He could see her, a woman staggering across the uneven ground, struggling against the weight of her swollen belly. Her clothes were mudded and torn, reflecting the chaos of a journey that had begun in hopes of a better life but had quickly spiraled into a nightmare. Time froze as Jack's heart raced. He glanced at the wagon leaders, their faces painted with confusion, caught in the indecisiveness that often paralyzed groups in moments of crisis. They hesitated, unsure whether to move forward or turn back as the shadows of uncertainty loomed. The woman's voice cracked, raw with fear, and something deep inside Jack compelled him to act. Without thinking, he darted away from the train, his boots pounding against the earth as he rushed toward her. "Stay calm," he yelled, heart pounding, the distance between them closing with terrifying urgency. Leela had been left behind, abandoned by the very people she thought would shelter her, and Jack could see the desperation in her eyes. With each faltering step, she teetered on the brink of despair. Jack reached her just as she fell, collapsing onto her knees, a gasp escaping her lips. I can't go on, she choked out, her face a mask of pain and dread. Let me help you, Jack said, crouching down beside her, feeling the weight of her fear seep into his bones. He gently took her arm, lifting her up as if she were made of fragile glass. But Leela was trembling, not just from exhaustion, but from a deep-rooted terror. They left me, Jack. It doesn't matter. I'm here now, he assured her, the fire of resolve igniting within him. We have to find somewhere safe. With surprising strength, he helped her to her feet, though she leaned heavily into him, drawing comfort from his presence. The wagon train loomed in the distance, slowly disappearing over the rise, leaving them behind in a world that felt increasingly hostile. Then Leela's breath hitched sharply and she clutched her belly. I think. Jack's mind raced. They were miles from any settlement, no midwife or doctor in sight, and here they were, alone in the wilderness. Panic clawed at him, but he couldn't let fear take hold, not now. Okay, breathe, Leela, just breathe, he said, keeping his voice steady. The uncertainty of the forest felt claustrophobic, the trees standing sentinel as they prepared to face an impossible challenge together. Can you walk? I'll try, she gasped, the pain evident in her voice. They took cautious steps toward a thicket of trees nearby, Jack keeping his arm around her waist as they moved. Flowering bushes thrived in the shade, their fragrant blooms sweetening the air, stark against the backdrop of raw fear. With every step, Jack could feel Leela's trembling body growing more desperate, the reality of what was happening sinking in deeper. Leela gritted her teeth. Just a little more, I promise, Jack urged, fighting against the swell of anxiety rising in his chest. They reached the thicket, and Jack turned her so her back was against the sturdy trunk of an old oak tree. He knelt, keeping his eyes locked on her. We'll stay here until the worst passes. A fresh wave of discomfort washed over her and she groaned, her hand instinctively gripping his with an urgency that sent shockwaves through him. Heart racing, he felt the momentum of their urgent situation lift. Every instinct urged him to protect her, and in that moment he made a promise to himself. He would do everything it took to see her through this. Leila, listen to me. You're strong. You can do this, he said, filled with sincerity. I'm scared, she whispered, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. What if something goes wrong? What if nothing is going wrong? Jack interrupted gently. Look at me, you are not alone. As Leela panted, gripping his hand for dear life, Jack felt a surge of hope mingle with despair. He thought about the empty stretches of land surrounding them, the vastness of the wild, and how fragile life felt in this moment. But he also felt the sheer power of their connection, the strength of survival intertwined with the fragile threads of life and death. Hours seemed to stretch in time-warped ways as the wind rustled the leaves and clouds gathered overhead, darkening the sky. The air grew heavy as Jack felt Leela start to push against the force of nature and life. He encouraged, holding her gaze steady, tears of determination pooling in her eyes. Keep breathing. A sharp gasp escaped her lips as she fought against the pain. Jack could feel his heart pounding in his chest, echoing like a drumbeat of courage. He had heard stories from travelers about a man who delivered a child with nothing but the strength of conviction, and now it was his turn to be that lifeline. Push, Jack urged through clenched teeth, holding her hand as tightly as he could without hurting her. The forest felt alive. They were all witnesses to this moment. Time shifted as Leela fought, each breath a battle. Suddenly, a cry broke through the tension of the night, shattering the silence. Jack felt his spirit lift, elation washing over him as he saw a tiny form emerge, cradled gently into the world. He shouted, joy bursting forth like fireworks against the darkening sky. Leela fell back against the tree, gasping for breath, her face in disbelief as she cradled the newborn against her chest. She's beautiful, Jack whispered, unable to contain his smile as he looked at the tiny girl, her face scrunched up but alive and well. Overwhelmed with emotion swirling within her, Leela's tears fell freely now, a catharsis of joy and relief. She held her daughter tightly, a fierce bond already formed. But as the moment of joy settled around them, a rumble of thunder interrupted and the air turned electric. We need to find shelter, Jack said, a sense of urgency creeping back into his voice. The storm brewing overhead threatened to unleash its fury at any moment. Where? "We can't go back to the wagon train," Leela said, panic creeping back into her voice, her arms tightening protectively around her baby. Jack scanned the area, sensing the tension building in the air. "I know of a cave nearby. It's not too far." He helped Leela to her feet, both of them swaying slightly under the weight of their circumstances. Together, with the tiny baby nestled against her chest, they stumbled toward the thicket that led to the cave he had spotted weeks ago while scouting the area. Drenched in rain and fear, they pushed through the underbrush, the distant rumble of thunder echoing through the trees, growing closer with each step. Jack felt the energy of the world shift around them, intertwining with their struggle. "Just keep moving, Leela," he urged, guiding her forward. "You're not alone in this." As they neared the entrance of the cave, Jack's heart raced with the fear of the unknown. Would they be safe? Would they encounter danger? The questions pressed heavy on his mind, but they had come too far to turn back now. The entrance loomed before them, dark and inviting, as rain poured in torrents. Jack ushered Leela inside, enveloping them in a cool, damp space that felt strangely comforting. They sank down on the stone floor, water dripping from their clothes as the storm raged outside. "I can't believe we made it," Leela panted, relief flooding through her as she wrapped her arms protectively around her newborn. Jack looked at her, the exhausted mother radiating a spark of life that was almost palpable. In that moment, everything else faded: the storm, the wagon train, even the uncertainties they had faced. All that mattered was the bond they had forged through this battle of will. "You did it, Leela," he said, grinning with pride. She gazed down at the tiny face nestled in her arms, love pouring from her heart like a gentle stream. "Thank you for not leaving me behind," she whispered, the weight of gratitude evident in her voice. Jack leaned back against the cave wall, allowing himself a brief moment of reflection. "You're more than welcome, Leela." Outside, the storm raged on, yet inside the cave, a warm glow enveloped them. For Jack, it wasn't just about saving Leela. It was about the impact of human connection, the raw power of empathy and courage in the face of insurmountable odds. As they sat in that cave, the storm mirrored their tumultuous journey, but also brought forth the beauty of new beginnings. Jack and Leela had weathered the worst of it, finding refuge in the unlikeliest of places. They were no longer just strangers on a journey. They were a family united against the odds. The storm outside only served to remind them of the strength born from struggle, proving that even in the darkest of times, light could emerge, a testament to the indomitable spirit that thrived against all odds. Together, they waited out the storm, and each sound of the rain became a promise that they were not just survivors, but warriors, ready to greet whatever else the wild had in store. And as dawn broke, painting the sky with the first strokes of light, they emerged not just as surviving souls, but as a family embarking on a new journey together. The wagon train was just a silhouette against the blazing sunset, its wooden wheels creaking softly as it rolled forward into the vast unknown. The sky was ablaze with hues of orange and crimson, casting shadows that danced over the rugged terrain. Among the dust, dreams of a new life flickered like distant stars. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, a scream shattered the evening calm, freezing everything in its wake. "Help, please." Jack Thompson, a rugged scout known for his keen instincts, felt his heart drop. He turned just in time to see her, a woman, desperately running after the train, her hands clutching her swollen belly as she stumbled over the uneven ground. A voice called from the front of the wagon train. It was her husband, Thomas, his face a mask of panic. "Come back." But the train continued to roll, indifferent to her plight, the shadows swallowing her whole. The sight ignited something deep within Jack, a mix of anger and urgency that didn't allow him a moment's hesitation. He shouted to the others without waiting for their reaction. He dashed toward Leela, who was now collapsing to her knees, the weight of exhaustion and fear pulling her down. "All right, Leela, I'm here," he said, kneeling beside her, the desperation in her eyes cutting through him like a knife. "Breathe." She gasped, tears streaming down her face, her voice trembling. "I've got you," Jack replied, locking eyes with her. He could see the fear flickering behind her eyes, the fear of what she had left behind and the fear of what was to come. "I can't go on," she whispered, her strength waning. "Yes, you can," Jack insisted, lifting her up gently, feeling the warmth of her trembling body against his side. "Lean on me." As they staggered away from the sound of the train, the world felt impossibly large and empty, the horizon stretching infinitely before them. Jack could feel the tension in the air, the heaviness of the moment pressing down on them. Leela shouted, desperately looking back. Jack felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "We can't worry about them now." He cast a quick glance back and saw the train disappearing into the distance, the fading sounds of laughter now haunting echoes of abandonment. Leela leaned heavily onto him as they shifted through the tall grass. They needed to find cover, but every instinct screamed at him that time was running out. He caught her eye and gave her a reassuring nod. But then, Leela gasped sharply, clutching her belly again, her face twisting in agony. "It's happening, Jack." The baby fear struck Jack with the weight of a wild river. Okay. He glanced wildly, searching for a spot where they could rest. He spotted a thicket of trees, their branches arching protectively. Every step felt like a battle against fate, but they pushed onward, Leela's breath coming in quick bursts. Jack felt adrenaline pumping through him, his heart racing not just for himself, but for the life about to emerge. They finally reached the trees, and he helped Leela slide down against the base of a sturdy trunk. "Stay here," he said, crouching in front of her, locking eyes. "You're not alone." She was trembling, her brows knit in concentration. "I'm scared, Jack," she confessed, tears pooling in her eyes. "What if?" "Nothing is going wrong. You're stronger than you know," he reassured her. He couldn't let her see the fear creeping into his own heart. He squeezed her hand, trying to ground both of them in this moment of chaos. Just then, the first drops of rain began to fall, a heavy downpour that threatened to drown them both. Leela gasped again, her eyes widening in fear. "It's too soon. Keep your focus," Jack urged. In and out. They were alone now, surrounded by the wildness of the woods, and with each heartbeat he felt the profound weight of their situation. Every instinct told him to flee, to find safety, but there was no turning back now. "Please, Jack, I need you," Leela said, pain etched across her features as a wave of contractions hit her. He knelt closer, searching for a way to piece together the chaos. He said firmly, "You can do this." Another painful cry escaped her lips. Panic rose inside him as he saw her energy wane, but he couldn't falter. "Just think of your baby." He could feel the stark contrast of emotions swirl around them, the rush of fear battling the soft pulse of hope. Leela groaned again, and he wanted to shout against the universe, to challenge the cruel grip of fate. They fought against the elements together, struggling to keep hope alive. He encouraged, his voice steady. "You're doing it, Leela." The storm began to rage around them, rain pounding the earth like an angry drum, but in that cacophony there was still the heart of life battling against despair. Leela's voice cracked, and in that moment he felt his heart leap. She was so close, he could see it in her eyes, could feel her spirit fighting just beneath the surface. With every growl of thunder she pushed, each breath mingling with cries of pain and determination. Time slowed, every second stretching ninefold, the reality of their struggle magnifying in the haze of the storm. "I can do this," she gasped through gritted teeth. He shouted, his voice piercing the chaos around them. "You are strong enough, Leela." And then, in a moment like the crashing of waves against the shore, a brilliant scream filled the air, cutting through the storm, an otherworldly sound that echoed with the fierce announcement of life. Jack cried out, overwhelmed with a swell of emotion. He felt a mix of joy and relief flood through him like nothing he had ever experienced. Leela collapsed back against the tree, her face awash in disbelief and exhaustion. She whispered, eyes wide with hope and fear. Jack gently took the small, squirming bundle wrapped squarely in a tattered blanket. The infant let out a feeble cry, and he couldn't help but smile as tears blurred his vision. "She's perfect," he said, nearing Leela, who gazed down in awe at the life she had brought into the world. "I can't believe it." "She's really here," Leela marveled, her voice blown wide with emotion as she cradled the baby to her chest. But their moment of triumph was short-lived. The storm roared on, and the shadows of the forest were tinged with new danger. She gasped, cradling her daughter close. "There's a cave nearby," Jack said, urgency clamping at his heart. He helped Leela to her feet, though she trembled and looked uncertain, clinging to her newborn. Jack scanned the trees around them, desperation gripping him as he searched for a way forward. Stay close. With every step, the rain grew heavier, drenching them in an icy embrace, but they moved with purpose. The forest felt alive, every rustle echoing the challenge of survival. He could see the entrance to the cave now, a dim outline surrounded by shimmering water droplets. They dashed inside, breathless and soaked to the skin, the storm raging just outside. The cave's walls were damp and cool, offering them a brief sanctuary. Jack looked at Leela, who was still shaking but now had her daughter nestled securely against her chest. "We made it," Jack gasped, relief flooding through him as they sank to the cave floor, water dripping from their clothes. Tears brimmed in Leela's eyes. Her voice trembled. "What if Thomas, they will come back," Jack said, though doubt twisted in his gut. "You just brought new life into this world." Outside, the storm howled, but inside the cave there was a soft warmth, a growing bond between them. Jack felt a fierce sense of protectiveness rise within him, not just for Leela, but for the future that was now resting in the cradle of her arms. "We can wait it out here," he said softly. Leela held her baby close, her face lit with a newfound strength. "Thank you for staying with me, Jack, I thought." Jack met her gaze, seeing the gratitude and the weight of her journey behind her eyes. "You're not alone." As the rain pounded against the entrance of the cave, they settled into a fragile silence, their hearts racing not with fear but with a shared resolve. Jack thought about the long path they had traveled and how this moment forged an unbreakable bond between them. Leela's breathing steadied, her focus shifting fully to her newborn. Jack felt a profound respect for the strength it took to endure and fight against the odds. The cave served as a cocoon, protecting them from the world outside, and it became a sacred space filled with whispers of hope. The storm raged on, but in their small pocket of reality, they found a sense of peace, knowing that together, they had accomplished something incredible. Jack felt the warmth of the light expanding around them, a reminder that even in darkness, life could blossom like wildflowers through cracks in the pavement. Outside, the storm eventually began to subside, and through the entrance, Jack saw the first glimmers of dawn breaking as the clouds cleared. Armed with fresh promises of a new day, he turned to Leela, who looked up with cautious hope. "We made it," she said, tears still glistening in her eyes. "Yes," Jack replied, a smile breaking across his face. Together, they emerged from the cave, a newfound family stepping into the light, their spirits intertwined not just by circumstance but by the strength of survival against all odds. In the wild embrace of the world, they carried hope, a testament to resilience and a love that would carry them forward into a bright future. The journey they had survived became a new beginning, forever etched in the tapestry of their lives, reminding them that even in darkness, they found light. In the rugged heart of the American frontier, the sun blazed relentlessly, casting heat waves across the dusty ground. The wagon train was a long, winding line of hopes and dreams, each covered wagon holding the weight of anticipation and fear. Families traveled side by side, bound for a new life, yet tense with the threat of the unknown that lay ahead. Yet, just beyond the last wagon left behind was a woman, breathless and desperate, clutching her belly. Her name was Leela, and the wagon train had gone on without her. She stumbled over rocks and roots, panic flickering in her hazel eyes as she fought to keep up. "Stop!" Leela shouted, her voice drenched in anguish. But the wilderness answered only with silence, the horizon stretching endlessly as the train of wagons disappeared into the distance. Miles away, Jack Thompson, a scout for the wagon train, heard her cries like a ghost haunting the plains. He had been scouting the path ahead when the sound turned his blood cold. Without a moment's hesitation, he turned back, heart pounding with urgency. He pushed through the tall grass, the afternoon heat glistening on his skin, each step heavy with the weight of uncertainty. When he reached her, Leela collapsed before him, her face pale and slick with sweat. I can't keep up," she gasped. "Hang on," Jack said, his voice steady though his heart raced. He knelt beside her, noticing the deepening worry etched across her features. "You're going to be all right." Her voice wavered, panic rising as she glanced back at the road where she had come from. "They didn't see you," Jack replied, "but I did." He pulled her arm across his shoulder, helping her to stand. She leaned heavily against him, the reality of her pregnancy appearing like a heavy shadow between them. "Please," she implored, tears welling in her eyes. "I can't go on." "That's all right," Jack said, his voice softening, filled with respect and determination. "We don't have to push too hard right now." They moved through the thick underbrush, with each step bringing Leela closer to despair. Jack could feel the weight of her fear resonating in his bones. Her breaths were sharp, almost frantic, and he knew they wouldn't have much time. Without warning, Leela gasped again, clutching her belly. "It's coming," she said, her face contorted, the deepening pain unmistakable. Fear shot through Jack. They were miles from the nearest settlement and completely alone. "Leela, we need to get you somewhere safe. Just focus on me." I'll try," she managed, though the strain in her voice betrayed her resolve. "Just a little longer," he encouraged, offering her strength. "There's a thicket of trees ahead." With shaky breaths, they pushed onward, the world around them narrowing until it became just the two of them against the backdrop of the vast frontier. Jack felt the sun beating down, sweat trickling down his brow, but he couldn't waver now. As they stumbled toward the grove, another wave of pain seized Leela, and she cried out, her body shaking as she fought against the rising tide of her own biology. He urged, urgency climbing. Reaching the thicket, he eased Leela against the gnarled trunk of an old oak, shadows wrapping around them like a shroud. "Stay here," Jack said, his voice low and steady. "Breathe with me, let's take a moment." As she sank against the tree, Leela's breath came in sharp gasps, her eyes darting with fear. "I'm scared, Jack. What if something goes wrong? What if? What if nothing's going wrong?" he assured her, kneeling down to meet her eye level. "You are strong. You've made it this far. Just focus on your baby." In that moment, they were surrounded by the murmurs of the forest, the rustling leaves whispering stories of survival and strength. Jack could feel something powerful buzzing just beneath the surface, an aliveness in the air around them. "I'm trying," Leela whispered, determination flickering in her eyes. "Good. That's all you need to do," he said, deliberately keeping his voice calm as he held her hand. "I'm right here." Waves of pain surged through her, and Jack could see the tension in her face, the way she fought against the invisible foes closing in. He knew she needed more than just physical strength. She needed belief, hope, and the unwavering consciousness that she could bring this life into the world. "Push, Leela," he cried, his heart aching with each shout. She nodded, drawing on the strength he offered. The air became charged with fear and determination, alive with the energy of life and death meeting in that very moment. He urged again, feeling the world around them pulse with the rhythm of her struggle. The storm sky cracked overhead, rumbling like an orchestra swelling with the tension of a climactic moment. And then, a shriek echoed through the trees, a sharp, desperate sound that seemed to pull the very fabric of nature's existence back with it. With a final push, Leela let out a scream that resonated through the thicket, a sound so raw and primal it echoed through the air like thunder. In that moment, everything changed. Jack felt a flood of emotion wash over him as he saw the small, squirming form emerge into the world, yanked from the delicate balance of life and stillness. He shouted, exhilaration surging within him, bewilderment lifting the storm cloud settling in his heart. As he cradled the newborn in his arms, Leela slumped against the tree, weary yet astonished. "Is she?" Her voice trembled, filled with wonder and fear. "She's perfect," Jack assured her, gently cleaning the baby's face with the sleeve of his shirt before laying her in Leela's open arms. Tears ran down Leela's cheeks, sparkling in the dappled light. "I can't believe it." But their moment of joy was punctured by the relentless storm outside. The clouds swirled ominously, lightning flickering as the wind howled. "We need to find shelter," Jack insisted, scanning the area intently. They might have found life in that moment, but they were still surrounded by a wilderness that could turn dangerous in the blink of an eye. Leela asked, glancing around with panic in her eyes, still clutching her newborn. "There's a cave not far from here," Jack replied. "I know the area." He stood quickly, supporting her as she struggled to her feet, holding the baby with tenderness. Together, they staggered toward the cave, each step heavy with the combined weight of newfound hope and vulnerability. The rain began to pour, the world outside becoming a blur of gray and shadows. But inside, as they entered the cool darkness of the cave, Jack felt a sense of relief wash over him. They sank down onto the rocky floor, breathless and soaked, the sound of the rain pounding against the entrance echoing like distant drums. Leela asked, looking around anxiously. "It's our best chance," Jack replied, feeling the warmth of the moment despite the chaos outside. "At least we're off the road and away from prying eyes." Tears still streamed down Leela's face, but now there was also a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Jack." "It's nothing," he said, though the truth hung heavy between them. Something noble swirled in the air, made palpable by their struggle. "You were the one who fought through all of this." As the storm continued to rage outside, their small world felt somehow sacred. They shared stories, words threading through the space between them like a lifeline. Jack spoke of his own journey, of the dreams that brought him to the frontier, the winding roads of loss and resilience. Leela listened intently, her eyes brightening with every word. "I've never felt so alive," she admitted, glancing down at the sleeping baby nestled in her arms. "I know what you mean," Jack said, a smile creeping across his lips. In the dim light of the cave, they shared a moment of connection that transcended the circumstances that linked them. Experiences shaped by pain, suffering, and the ultimate triumph of life connected them in ways they never expected. Outside, the storm began to subside, leaving only the soft patter of raindrops against the earth. But inside, there was a warmth blossoming, a profound sense of resilience woven between two souls who had once been strangers. As the sun began to peek through the clouds, the once dark cave breathed new life. Jack glanced at Leela, her face illuminated with a newfound glow as she cradled her baby, a bond formed in the fires of survival and defiance. "We made it," she said softly, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, we did," Jack affirmed, a sense of pride swelling within him. And so they left the cave, stepping back into the world, a world that once felt constricted and dangerous, now bursting with possibilities painted with the colors of hope. The storm had passed, but the promise of new beginnings glimmered in the distance. Side by side, carrying Leela's newborn and the shared stories of their journey, they ventured back toward the wagon train. The dust danced beneath their feet, the wind whispered tales of resilience, and together they forged a path ahead filled with unbreakable bonds and the strength to continue in a world that had once sought to divide them. Jack had saved the pregnant stranger left behind, but in truth, he had also found something essential for himself, a reminder of what it meant to embrace vulnerability, to root for one another, and to carry hope like a flame against the dark. As the sun broke through the clouds, they moved forward, creating a new story together, a testament to the audacity of life itself. The sound of creaking wheels and the low murmur of conversation filled the air, blending seamlessly with the scent of dust and wildflowers. The wagon train, a long line of hope and desperation, moved slowly across the vast expanse of the Oregon Trail. Families dreamed of new beginnings, yet with every turn of the wheel, the reality of the harsh frontier loomed ever closer. But amidst the noise and movement, a piercing scream cut through the chatter like a hot knife through butter. It echoed out across the landscape. "Help!" Jack Thompson, a rugged scout with a seasoned gaze, felt his heart stop for a moment. Instinct urged him to turn, and when he did, he saw her, Leela, a woman frantically trying to catch up with the train, her eyes wide with panic. She was pregnant, visibly struggling against the weight of both her body and the emotions swirling within her. Her outstretched hand grasped at the air, reaching for something beyond her grasp. She pleaded, her voice a mixture of desperation and fear. Jack's blood ran cold. The wagon train continued to roll forward, oblivious to her plight, the distant shouts of her husband, Thomas, barely making their way back to her. "Come on," he shouted, fixed on the path ahead as if he could will her to keep up. For a brief moment, time felt suspended. Jack's mind raced, battling with the decision before him. He could continue on with the train or run toward her, risking it all. In that quick second, Jack made his choice. He shouted to Leela, springing into action, his boots pounding against the dry earth as he rushed toward her. The world around him faded, and all he could see was her, full of fear, desperation, and an unrelenting determination to keep up amid the chaos. He reached her just as her strength failed. She collapsed into his arms, each breath shallow, trembling with anxiety. "I can't do this alone," she gasped, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You're not alone. I'm here," Jack replied, lifting her up against him, feeling the warmth from her trembling body. "You need to keep moving." Each step felt heavier as they moved away from the train and deeper into the wilderness, the woods closing around them like a suffocating embrace. Leela trembled beside him, the fear in her eyes cut into him more than any blade. She whispered, a chill wrapping around them despite the heat of the day. "They will," Jack insisted, though doubt curled at the edges of his mind. With every step, the world began to shift. They were far behind the wagon train now, and Jack could hear only the sounds of nature surrounding them, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of birds, and Leela's rapid breaths. But then it happened. A sharp gasp escaped Leela's lips, and she doubled over, clutching her belly. She cried, panic flooding her features. Time ceased to exist. The sunlight poured down, bathing them in heat while anxiety surged in Jack's chest. "You can do this," he shouted, the urgency punctuating his words. But the reality was unfolding all around him. They were miles away from any help, stranded in the wild with no time to spare. "Where?" Leela's voice trembled, swirling with despair. "There," Jack pointed to a grove of trees a little further ahead, a sanctuary hidden among the wild vines and underbrush. "Just a few steps more." They pushed forward, Jack feeling every ounce of Leela's fear and pain slamming into him. With each movement, he realized how fragile their existence was, hovering on the edge of peril yet somehow reaching for hope. They reached the grove, and Jack eased Leela against the gnarled trunk of an ancient oak tree, the bark rough against her back. "Just stay here," he instructed gently. But Leela's eyes widened with panic. "You don't understand. Focus on me, Leela," he urged, cradling her face in his hands, making her look into his eyes. "You're going to be okay." The words felt more like a prayer than a promise, but he needed her to believe. He could see her trembling, fighting against the turmoil swelling within. "I'm scared," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know," Jack replied softly, squeezing her hands, grounding them both. "But you've already come this far." Then, just as he expected, another wave of pain seized her and Leela cried out, doubling over again. Jack's heart raced. And warped seconds felt like days, swirling between hope and despair. With each scream, Jack felt the weight of their situation pressing tighter around them. The sun continued its relentless ascendancy, oblivious to the tension filling the grove. He shouted, trying to keep her focused, his own fear ebbing into sheer determination. "You can do it, Leela." Minutes stretched into what felt like lifetimes. Jack could feel the very essence of life hanging in the room, a fragile balance between creation and collapse. Leaning closer, he whispered, "You're stronger than you realize." With every cry that escaped her, Jack's heart hammered in response. The wild nature around them felt alive, but their world had narrowed down to a singular moment filled with fierce urgency and desperate hope. And then, like a bolt of lightning striking the earth, Leela let out a scream that pierced through the chaos, shattering the barrier between silence and birth. She cried, shock and joy mingling in her voice. Jack implored, the swell of emotion curving through him like the tides. Then came a final push, a moment where the world seemed to stop entirely, as if nature were holding its breath. And then it happened. A squalling cry filled the air, raw and immediate, bringing with it a flood of relief and joy. Jack's heart leaped as he glimpsed the tiny form cradled in Leela's arms. He exclaimed, his voice a mixture of celebration and disbelief. Leela, gasping for breath, looked down with wide, astonished eyes. Tears streamed down her face as realization washed over her like a tide. Is she? Jack carefully helped Leela take her daughter, wrapping her gently in a cloth they'd had to use earlier. She's perfect, he whispered, watching as Leela's face glowed with a mixture of exhaustion and joy, the battle still fresh in her memory. But the work wasn't done. Outside, the storm clouds were gathering, dark and ominous. Jack said, urgency flooding back, mingling with the thrill of victory. Leela asked, vulnerability painting her features anew. There's a cave nearby. He quickly glanced around, scanning the surroundings for signs of danger. With determination rekindled, Leela nodded, cradling her baby close to her heart. Together, they forged a path, Jack keeping a protective arm around her as they moved through the thick tangle of trees. As they stumbled forward, raindrops began to fall, the sky erupting with thunder. Jack felt a surge of urgency. "Hurry, Leela." The cave came into view, a shadowy sanctuary beckoning them to safety. They dashed inside just as the skies opened up, the rain pouring down behind them in sheets. Once inside, they leaned against the cool surface of the cave walls, panting and breathless. Jack could hardly believe they had made it. "We did it," he murmured, relief flooding through him as he took in their surroundings, now merely damp and dark but safe. Outside, the storm raged on, but within the cave bulging with echoes, they found a moment of peace. Leela asked, glancing down at her baby who had quieted but still grasped onto life with a fierce hold. Jack knelt beside her, looking at the child nestled between them. Leela's voice wavered. "It could be hours, but we'll be all right." The cave, once dark and daunting, now felt like a fortress, sheltering them from the fierce world outside. Jack found himself watching Leela as she leaned back against the wall, her expression a blend of exhaustion and exhilaration. "I never thought I could do it," she confessed, tears glistening in her eyes. "It was you who did the hard part," Jack replied. "You showed immense strength." A smile broke across Leela's face. Jack felt something shift within him. The storm crashed and roared outside, but they found warmth in their shared stories. They spoke of their dreams, their pasts, and the journeys that had led them here, a chance encounter forged in the fires of struggle. Leela spoke of her life before the journey, the weight of expectations and the fear of failing. Jack listened, captivated by the journey of her spirit. In that cave, they found a connection that transcended circumstance, born from vulnerability and shared humanity. Hours passed, the storm eventually subsiding to soft, steady raindrops pattering against the cave entrance. As the sky began to clear, a faint light peeked through, illuminating the dark corners of their sanctuary. "Looks like the worst is over," Jack said, relief washing over him. "Thank you for everything," Leela replied, her voice steady now. Jack helped her to her feet, feeling her strength gain momentum with every passing second. "You're not alone anymore, Leela. You have a daughter and I'll always be here," he promised. As they stepped outside, the air felt fresh and invigorating, full of possibilities, each breath renewed in the wake of hardship. The ground was wet beneath their feet, but as they walked back toward the wagon train, Jack felt a sense of purpose radiating from within. They moved together, no longer just a scout and a pregnant woman, but a family bound through shared struggle and triumph. The wagon train soon came into view, still in camp where they had left it. Jack pointed, guiding Leela toward the familiar gathering of life. As they approached, he could see Thomas, wide-eyed with relief, rushing toward them. He shouted, his voice breaking as he reached them. "You're here." "I was fine," she said as Jack placed his hand on her shoulder, grounding her. "Jack found me." The reunion unfolded around them, hugs and tears exchanged, gratitude echoed among the members of the train. As they stood together in that moment, Jack felt the overwhelming weight of what they had achieved together. Their lives forever intertwined in a story forged by survival. But for Jack, it was more than a day's adventure. It was a reminder that strength often came from connection, that in the worst of times, humanity could begin to shine. And as Leela cradled her daughter in her arms, surrounded by the warmth and laughter of her community, Jack stepped back to admire what they had built. In the vast wilderness of their lives, they had survived against the odds, transforming from strangers into a family intertwined by fate, forever etched in the annals of their hearts. It was the story of not just survival, but of love, courage, and the incredible power of human connection. In that world of uncertainty, they found hope together. A dense fog enveloped the plains as the wagon train rolled forward, wheels creaking against the weight of dreams, hopes, and a journey into the unknown. The air was thick with dust and the scent of sweat, mingling with the sweet, wild smell of sagebrush. Families pressed on, a tightly knit community bound by shared struggles and unyielding ambition. But within the moving heart of that train lay an unexpected tension, crackling like electricity before a storm. Suddenly, a scream shattered the rhythm of the day. "Help!" The sound pierced the air, echoing over the rolling hills and dragging Jack Thompson from his focused thoughts. A seasoned scout, Jack had traversed these trails countless times, feeling both the weight and thrill of the rugged, untamed land. He turned sharply, heart pounding. He could see her, a woman, Leela, struggling to catch up to the wagons, her hand thrust out as if reaching for a lifeline. A voice called from the lead wagon. It was her husband, Thomas, his face contorted in panic. "Come on." Time in that moment seemed to hang suspended. The train continued its slow, relentless march, indifferent to her cries for help. Her husband's anxious gestures only added to the chaos. Jack felt a deep knot of resolve tighten in his chest. He couldn't ignore her plight, couldn't stand by as the wagons faded into the distance, not when she was in such desperate need. He shouted to the others, breaking away from the train and racing toward her. With each step, he felt the weight of her fear mingling with the resoluteness building within him. Leela gasped as he closed the distance. Desperation painted her features, and Jack could see the burden of her pregnancy heavy upon her. She was at her limit, energy waning as tears shimmered in her eyes. "I've got you," Jack said, lunging to her side, his arm wrapping around her to support her weight. She leaned against him, breathless as they swayed together. "You have to keep moving." Panic flickered through her gaze. "What about the wagon train? They don't see you right now," he said, choice and clarity spilling from his lips. "But I do." Together, they turned back to the path leading away from the train, moving through the tall grass where shadows danced beneath the fading sun. Jack could feel Leela trembling as she leaned into him, grasping tightly. The wild beauty of the landscape loomed around them, but it felt hostile, a world eager to swallow them whole. Leela gasped suddenly, her hand clenching around her belly, eyes wide with fear. "It hurts." "We'll find a spot to rest," he promised, urgency seeping into his words. Courage surged through him. This was not just about surviving, this was about fighting for life itself. He scanned the horizon, searching for anything that resembled shelter. There, just off to the side, he spotted a grove of trees, an oasis of shade amidst the unforgiving terrain. He urged, guiding Leela toward the thicket. Each step was a monumental effort, but together they pushed through, fueled by determination. When they reached the grove, Leela trembled, her face pale and drawn. "I don't know if I can keep going," she whispered, her breath hitching. He encouraged, his heart racing as he helped her lean against the rough bark of an oak tree. "You're strong, Leela." But the air around them thickened, charged with anxiety. Leela's breaths quickened, panic bubbling beneath the surface. "I can't do this, Jack. Listen to me," he said, kneeling beside her, making sure she focused solely on him. "You've made it this far. You can get through this." The sounds of the wagon train faded away, but their shared moment became a sanctuary of its own. Jack could feel tension spiking as Leela's breath quickened, a deep essence of panic rising in her gaze. He had never witnessed childbirth, yet felt the weight of instinct swelling within him. "Focus on my voice," he said, his tone steady. "You can do this." Leela's forehead glistened with sweat and she squeezed her eyes shut, groaning as another wave of pain surged through her. "Jack, I don't know if I can do this," she gasped. He urged, gripping her hand tightly. "Just think of your baby. Your daughter is waiting for you." With every wave of agony, time warped and twisted around them, seconds stretching into eternity. Every shudder of uncertainty flickered through the leaves overhead, as if nature itself held its breath. When Leela finally cried out, a raw, primal sound echoed in the grove, cutting through the anguish. Jack could see the fierce determination building within her like a storm rising on the horizon. "Push, Leela," he called, feeling the urgency swell into a crescendo that pounded in his chest. The strength of their shared moment surged forward as she cried out again, the energy in the air feeling electric. Jack leaned closer, forgetting everything else but the fight of survival unfolding before him. He shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. With a final push and earth-shattering, soul-stirring cry, Leela bared the burden of creation. Silence enveloped them for just a heartbeat, and then the air vibrated with the sound of a newborn's first cries. Jack exclaimed, incredibly overwhelmed, tears welling in his eyes. Leela slumped back against the tree, gasping for breath, all flooding her expression as she looked down at the tiny, squirming form in her arms. Leela asked, her voice shaky, eyes wide with wonder. "She's perfect," Jack said, swaying with emotion. His heart swelled as he tenderly regarded the baby, feeling a connection he never anticipated. Leela was a warrior, and in her victory, he finally saw the beauty of what they had accomplished together. But their moment of triumph was fleeting. Outside, storm clouds gathered ominously, a reminder that danger still lurked. "Leela," Jack said urgently, his voice filled with fear. She asked, panic creeping back into her voice. "There's a cave nearby." He insisted, glancing around instinctively, searching for signs that they weren't alone. As if responding to his rallying call, the first rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, a stark reminder of the storm rolling in. "Hold on to your baby tight," he instructed firmly, guiding her away from the tree. Together they stumbled through the underbrush, urgency propelling them forward as the wind began to howl, whipping through the branches above them. Jack's heart raced, fear igniting every instinct within him. They had narrowly escaped the chaos of birth, and now they were charging toward the storm. He shouted over the rising winds, his voice a fierce anchor against the relentless gale. Each step felt like racing against fate itself. Finally, the dark outline of the cave came into view, a haven just beyond the tree line. They dashed toward it, breathless and soaked in perseverance and adrenaline. Once inside, they pressed against the cool stone, gasping for air as droplets of water dripped from the entrance. Leela asked, uncertainty creasing her brow. Jack glanced around, the shadows deepening around them but feeling the comforting solidity of the cave. "It will have to be," he replied, taking a deep breath. Outside, the storm roared to life. Lightning shattered the sky, illuminating the cave in bursts of brilliant white, and the sound of torrential rain pounded the earth. Leela held her daughter close to her chest, her heart racing not only with fear but also with relief. "We made it," she said, looking up at Jack with eyes wide with wonder. "Yes," he acknowledged, still trembling from the ordeal. As the storm raged outside, they huddled in the depths of the cave, the sound of rain crashing against the rocks echoing all around them. Jack peered into the darkness, uneasy as the rumble of thunder pressed in so close it felt like a living thing. "I should have never left the train," Leela said softly, looking down at the baby cradled in her arms. Jack felt a surge of emotion for her, feeling the oppression of the world outside threatening their fragile bubble. "You did what you had to do," he assured her gently. She asked, glancing at the entrance to the cave, hope lingering in her voice. "I don't know," Jack admitted, feeling uncertainty claw at him. Moments turned into hours, the intimacy of their situation curling around them like a blanket. Jack thought back to the wagon train, how relentless the journey had been. But ultimately, this was about survival. Suddenly, the rumbling outside shifted and silence descended upon the storm. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, the heavy hush making the hairs on his neck stand. Leela whispered, glancing at him, fear lacing her voice. "That's what I'd like to know," Jack replied, his instincts revving into high gear. As the weight of the damp air began to press down on them, Jack sensed movement, the sound of footsteps crunching through the underbrush just outside the cave. He murmured, his voice a low warning. The tension curled thick like smoke as Leela nodded, her grip on her baby tightening. Jack held his breath, waiting, hoping. The steps grew closer, indiscernible voices filtering through the calm. "We've been looking for them," one voice said, menacing and deep. Fear coursed through Jack's veins. Whoever was out there, they were searching for them, for Leela. He could feel the thrum of his heart, the realization that danger was merely a heartbeat away. Panic surged in Leela's eyes as she clutched her baby tighter. He whispered urgently, moving to shield her from view. They had no idea who was out there, friend or foe. The voices drew nearer, intertwining with the faint sound of rain, shadows flickering at the entrance of the cave. Jack's heart raced, caught between the thrill of fight or flight. He couldn't let fear dictate their fate any longer. As he peered cautiously around the cave's edge, the first glimpse of their pursuers came into view. 3 men, rugged and wild, their faces shadowed beneath wide-brimmed hats. They carried weapons that glinted in the pale light, their expressions set with determination. One of them asked, hoarse with anger. The hairs on Jack's neck stood on end. He had to protect Leela. "We can't stay here. We have to move," he whispered urgently. Leela's eyes were wide with fear, her hand trembling against her baby. "I know," Jack said, clenching his jaw as he looked back toward the men. They had made it this far against the odds, and Jack wasn't about to let it end like this. "On 3, we make a break for it," he said, his voice low and determined. Leela nodded, her breath catching as she steadied herself, feeling the weight of what lay outside those cave walls. Just then, thunder rumbled in the distance, and a lightning bolt scraped through the sky, illuminating the entrance to the cave. Jack shouted, propelling them forward into the flickering light of uncertainty. As they dashed toward the entrance, everything hinged on that one moment, a moment filled with danger and promise. The men turned, their gaze catching them in an instant. Jack felt adrenaline surge through him as he pushed Leela out into the open. He shouted, feeling the urgency of their escape wash over him. And just like that, everything changed. The storm raged around them, but Jack and Leela were alive and running for their lives, propelled into an unknown world as the shadows chased them faster than they could imagine, fate hanging in the balance.